for God's sakes.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of PB Fintech Limited, we thank you for taking out the time and joining us today. We welcome you to the virtual analyst and brokers meet on the announcement of the company's forthcoming IPO. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the management and distinguished guests who would be addressing today's gathering. From the company, we have with us Mr. Yashish Dahiya, Chairman and CEO, and Mr. Alok Bansal, Full-Time Director and CFO. Representing the BRLMs, we have Mr. Sachin Wagle, Co-Head India Investment Banking at Morgan Stanley India Company Private Limited, Mr. Arvind Vashisht, Head Equity Capital Markets at Citigroup Global Markets India Private Limited, Mr. Govind Khaitan, Associate Vice President, Equity Capital Markets at Kotak Mahindra Capital Company Limited, Mr. Gautam Benjamin, Executive Vice President, Corporate Finance at ICICI Securities Limited, Mr. Ajit Pancholi, Head Equity Capital Markets at HDFC Bank Limited, Mr. Kunur Bhavishi, Vice President at IFL Securities Limited, and Mr. Aman Puri, Head Equity Capital Markets at Jefferies India Private Limited. We have placed all microphones on mute. Post the presentation, we will welcome questions. A sincere request to all to kindly type their respective questions in the Q&A panel available to you, which will be further read out to the management on completion of the presentation. Before we begin, I would like to take you through a couple of short television commercials of PB Fintech Limited. May we have the commercials, please?
We are gathered today.
ब्रदर, सस्ते में कार इंश्योरेंस कहाँ मिलेगा यार?
इसमें हंसने की क्या बात है? सब जानते हैं कि सस्ता कार इंश्योरेंस मतलब policybazaar.com।
policybazaar.com। जरूरत पड़ी तो बच्चे का पढ़ाई रुकवा देंगे, फुटपाथ पे सो जाएंगे, लेकिन इंश्योरेंस में पैसा नहीं उड़ाएंगे।
उल्लू मत बनो अंकल। policybazaar.com पर 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस और टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 400 रुपए महीने से शुरू होता है। ले लो ना।
पॉलिसी बाजार।
25 लाख। थर्ड क्लास हॉस्पिटल का 5 स्टार बिल।
अब हॉस्पिटल बिल के आगे हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस कम नहीं पड़ेगा। policybazaar.com पे 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 400 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हुए नहीं कि बिल का मीटर चालू, और ये मीटर तेजी से आपकी सारी सेविंग्स खत्म कर देगा। अरे अब तो करवा लो हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस policybazaar.com से, महंगा नहीं है।
policybazaar.com पे 5 लाख का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 200 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
एक 30 साल के इंसान के लिए 1 करोड़ का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस 9,000 तक का भी है और 15,000 तक का भी। policybazaar.com पे 15 से ज्यादा कंपनीज के टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस कंपेयर करके पैसे बचाओ।
कुछ पैसे बोरो करने थे।
लोन चाहिए तो पैसाबाजार.com पर जाइए। पैसाबाजार.com, लोन सही मिलेगा यहीं।
5 lakhs। Once broken, considered sold।
लोन की जरूरत कभी भी पड़ सकती है। पैसाबाजार.com पर मिलेगा इंस्टेंट लोन अप्रूवल। लोन सही मिलेगा यहीं।
हेलो सर।
हेलो।
सॉरी सर।
सॉरी नहीं, सही क्रेडिट कार्ड चुनो। पैसाबाजार.com पर मिलेंगे फ्री लाउंज एक्सेस और बेस्ट ट्रैवल ऑफर्स वाले क्रेडिट कार्ड्स। पैसाबाजार.com, कार्ड सही मिलेगा यहीं।
Thank you so much. That really gave all of us a really good insight on what PB Fintech is all about. That is Policy Bazaar and Paisabazaar. I would now like to invite Mr. Sachin Wagle from Morgan Stanley India Company Private Limited to initiate the proceedings. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I was very inquisitively looking at the number of participants, which the ticker seems to be growing with every passing second. I can see there are over 310 participants already, 320 as I speak. On behalf of the management of PB Fintech Limited and book running lead managers to the IPO, I welcome you all with great pleasure to the occasion of this broker and analyst meet for PB Fintech IPO. We at Morgan Stanley are proud to be the book running lead managers to this India listing of the unique, one-of-its-kind, technology-centric insurance and financial services marketplace. We believe PB Fintech is truly a landmark IPO addressing large, underpenetrated, and growing insurance and consumer lending markets. It is the undisputed leader and only meaningful player in digital insurance distribution in India, with dominant market share in digital insurance through Policybazaar, and likewise, India's largest consumer credit marketplace through Paisabazaar. Company has been at the forefront of constant technology-led innovations, helping protect hundreds of millions of middle-class Indian households from death, disease, and disability. PB Fintech's IPO shall further help create new age market cap creation in India, and I thank Yashish and Alok for joining in creating this value creation. Key highlights of the IPO. The price band of the IPO is 940 to 980 rupees per share, which means at the top end of the price band, the total offer size stands at rupees 5,710 crores, comprised of fresh issue of 3,750 crores and an offer for sale component of rupees 1,960 crores. The total QIB tranche is going to be not less than 4,282 crores, of which the anchor would be up to rupees 2,569 crores. HNI, or the non-institutional portion, would be not more than 857 crores, and the retail would be not more than 571 crores. The IPO opens on November 1 and closes on November 3, with the anchor portion opening and closing on October 29. As mentioned by the moderator, we have with us the two co-founders with us today. Yashish, who's the chairman and CEO of the company, and Alok, who's the whole-time director and the CEO. Without much ado, I'm going to hand it over to both of them to take you through the presentation. But before I do that, once again, I'm going to thank all of you for joining this session, and we look forward to wholehearted support from all of you for this IPO. So with that, let me hand over to Yashish and Alok. Over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to attend this session. We will, in the next half an hour, try to explain a little bit more about Policybazaar than you may have picked up from your other sources. And then we will take questions from all of you. We're very thankful for all of you who have joined here. We'll just start with the presentation. So Policybazaar, PB Fintech is the holding company which is going public. There are two entities in it, Policybazaar and Paisabazaar. Both are market leaders in the insurance, on the digital marketplace area, one in insurance and one in consumer credit. I just wanted to also mention here, we have raised till date about $400 million, of which about 60 to 65% is still in the bank. So both these brands have been built out with a total cash burn of about $140 million. And that's about $70 million for Policybazaar and about $70 million for Paisabazaar. That tells you a bit about how we think and how we build brands. Of course, it's a different time in the Indian market right now. So it's difficult to compare from time to time. Besides myself and Alok, Sarbvir Singh is the president of Policybazaar, and Naveen is the co-founder and CEO of Paisabazaar, and he runs that business. We've been backed by a huge bunch of investors from the last 13 years. We are very proud that besides Intel Capital, none of our investors have ever exited after having invested with us. And that again gives you a bit of an indication of what relationships we share with our, because they were exiting India per se. And when they wanted to, we got them an exit within 1 week in those days. But can we move forward on Policy Bazaar? See, we all know that the insurance is a large opportunity and online is a small part of it. But rather than focusing on that, I would rather focus on the protection side, which is the next slide. See, we have a very large protection gap on the life insurance side. When we started Policy Bazaar, this number was 92 to 93%. Today it is 83%. So yes, we as an industry have been successful in reducing the protection gap a bit and increasing the protection to almost double of what it was. However, there is still a huge gap. And clearly the sum assured as a percentage of GDP, India has one of the lowest in the world even now. If we look at health insurance, 63% of all healthcare spend is out of pocket. For a middle class person, it is no longer affordable to even spend 1 week in a hospital in any of the good hospitals in the country. It's not an affordable proposition anymore. Health insurance thus is a necessity for the middle class. We are very proud in this environment to have 7 trillion rupees of sum assured. It is a large part of the sum assured of the entire country. We work with 48 insurance partners. The 4,700 crores of insurance premium we have done is very small compared to our $7 trillion of sum assured impact. So we have a much higher impact on the coverage that a consumer receives compared to our premium. And we've been growing at 42.5%, average over the last 2 years. Please do appreciate this is despite the fact that motor insurance has not been growing, which before this 2 years was over was a significant part of our business. Our focus is protection against death, disease, disability, which is health insurance and term insurance. We also do motor insurance and savings and pensions, but the prime focus stays health and term. We had 126.5 million customers who on their own visited the platform in the year 2021. There's a reason why I seem to be so excited about 126 million people. This is not an entertainment site. It's a very boring insurance site. We do not even, basically people come here to buy insurance policies or to inquire about insurance policies. So from that standpoint, this is one of the largest numbers anywhere in the world of somebody actually coming on their own looking for insurance information. 51 million registered consumers, 10 million transacting consumers with 20 million policies, about 2 policies on average. Over time, we hope to take this up. See, what is the fundamental problem we are solving? When insurance is sold, typically somebody goes and tells, a qualified agent goes and tells the customer about the products of his or her company. And the customer does not really have a lot of research tools to compare and gain transparency on the product. And that is exactly where Policy Bazaar comes in. In a very quick 90 seconds, it is able to give the customer a good comparison with simplified terms and a faster service. But something which is not very well understood is that the customer is also making declarations at this time. And over time, it has been proven that the digital side has a much better declaration level. And that is just because you are receiving raw customer disclosure, which is of a superior nature and thus allows companies to understand claims much better. So essentially, it works for both parties, for the consumer and for the insurer, to know each other better before they enter the contract. Talking about the consumer journey, there are multiple things one can do. One can research multiple products, including jargon clarification, look at comparisons, purchase a policy, cancel a policy, get refunds, do endorsements, financial, non-financial endorsements. You may lodge your claim, track your claim and the progress of your claim. And you will, of course, get renewal reminders, etc., etc. And you can also have some suggestions on which products are right for you, etc. See, we have created one of the most trusted insurance brands in the country. Over the last 13 years, we've been explaining to the consumer why they should go and buy insurance. The result of all that is 82.1% of all the premium sourced via our platform comes from those customers who come to the platform directly. This is a very powerful number. It means we don't have to spend marketing money to get these customers. And that's a very powerful position to be in. If we move forward, 80.4% of all transactions happen unassisted. Now, this could somewhere cause a bit of misunderstanding. So I want to clarify. Many of these are the smaller ticket, easier transactions like two-wheeler, four-wheeler, travel insurance. So those almost all happen unassisted. But if you look at health insurance or life insurance, there will be a much larger component of assistance required. I'm pretty confident if the assistance was not there, if the call center was not there, then the sales of health or life might be somewhere between 1/3 to half of what they are today. But for the remaining products, a bulk of it is happening in an unassisted fashion. We, of course, keep developing as technologies become available. We keep developing those, whether it is a video inspection app, whether it is risk assessment, it's various things we will keep doing. And that's obvious. Because we have a consumer database over the last 13 years, we have been assessing this along with the claims history and developing good risk assessment tools, which we share with all our partners. We have fraud detection mechanisms, and we have deep behavioral analytics, which again we share with our partners. So they can leverage this from a fraud prevention perspective. Talking about Paisabazaar, I think you know enough about the lending category and lending opportunity in India. I'll just put out one piece of fact for you. The US, with a population of 275 million people, has more than 1 billion credit cards. Whereas India, with a population of 1.3 billion, which is 4 times higher than the US, has about 35 to 40 million credit cards. So clearly, there's an opportunity to grow our credit access in the country. And the route that Paisabazaar has chosen is it offers customers the credit score for free and gets 2/3 of the revenue of its total revenue from the credit score program by engaging with those customers and explaining to them what may be a better product for them. 6,550 crores of loans were disbursed in the year 2020. And the growth is about 28.4%. Again, the focus is largely unsecured credit and credit cards, although recently we also started credit advisory, credit score program and the secured loans. You would see Paisabazaar evolving more into the account aggregator framework, the neobank framework, clearly to provide more and more access to consumers of their own data. The basic pain point for a consumer was when he decided he wanted a loan, he or she wanted a loan and they wanted it now. The loan can be from 5 lakh rupees for 5 years to 50,000 rupees for 5 days, or even 5,000 rupees for 5 days. And no one provider can cover the entire market. So you needed to have multiple partners to provide the customer all the options that existed, or most of the options that exist, so that the consumer may choose what product is right for them. And this information is provided by Paisabazaar, because Paisabazaar uses the credit score program also, and essentially takes the consumer's details and from 4 credit bureaus, free of cost, in 4 regional languages, and explains to them how much loan they can get from whom, how fast, and also explains to them what the terms and conditions of those loans are going to be, so they can make an informed decision. Move forward. There are a lot of differentiated product offerings that have started to appear in Paisabazaar. And this is just a journey that the Paisabazaar is taking towards slowly becoming an open architecture neobank. Next slide, please. I'll hand over to Alok to cover the financial performance.
Thanks, Yashish. So as we saw on the Policybazaar side, the sum assured on the platform in FY21 was 7 trillion rupees. This has been growing at more than 40% over the last 3 years. The growth in general insurance is higher last year, owing to renewal book and 1 crore health insurance product sort of things happening. The premium growth is in line, 42% CAGR over the last 3 years. And in FY21, we enabled 4,700 crore worth of premium to go through the platform. If we look at the cohorts of health and motor insurance, this is one of the most important data point about us. So for every rupee of health insurance premium which has gone to the platform, there is a drop off in the first year because some of the products are 1-year products, or some customers who do not claim in the first year or join a corporate may not want to continue. But beyond that, pretty much everyone keeps on coming back. And as their family size grows, their paying capacity grows, and they look at high medical inflation, this will just keep on increasing again and again. So it's already at almost 6x. Motor is at 3.4x, and CQ is still bigger. But in health insurance, because these products typically will be next for 20, 30, 40 years with this customer, this book will keep on coming back. The best part is 95% of this flows down to the bottom line, so there's a little bit of effort required, but beyond that, so when the management team will decide on how much to invest behind a particular business, this should give you some idea of our thinking, because in health insurance, we'll take a decision based on the value of that transaction. And sometimes in the first year, it doesn't look that amazing, but because we know this data, over years, that starts to come back in a very big way. In terms of our operating income, in FY21, as you can see, we had 887 crore of operating income. This was despite the fact that Paisabazaar had a very tough year with COVID, where the disbursements were down by 55%, but we could still post a positive growth. On a quarter basis also, you can see there was a growth of revenue in the last year, 175 crore to 238 crores of this year. If we look at some of the operating stuff, see, as Yashish mentioned, a lot of life insurance and health insurance requires some assistance. So our total premium per advisor is already at 1.4 crore per advisor per year. If we take out the renewals, then also this number is almost 80 lakh rupees per advisor per year. This is almost unheard of in the industry. The same is reflected in our revenue per advisor, which has grown by 2.2x over last 3 years. And, these efficiencies are something which is not driven by just 1 or 2 acts. There are multiple small things that we keep on doing, whether it's on the website, whether it's in terms of how we look at the operations, in terms of training. And we believe that this is a journey which will have still a lot of stuff in the coming years. In terms of overall cost structure, two of the major costs, the one you see in green is the marketing cost, and one you see in blue is the operations cost. They both have been coming down over last 3 years as a percentage of total revenue. And in FY21, this was at 107%. Both of these are becoming a little bit fixed in nature to some extent, where, yes, we'll have to look at inflation, we'll have to look at some market conditions. But beyond that, we expect them to grow at much slower rate compared to our revenue growth. So all this basically leads to a very good unit economics, where you can see that our contribution margin, which is our revenue minus operations cost minus online marketing cost, has improved to almost 40% in FY21. Again, these changes are very, very big changes. These are not 1 or 2 or 3 percentage point changes. And when you have such large changes, it basically indicates that there is still a long way to go for these to stabilize. I'll hand it back to Yashish now.
So looking at our strategy, it's not, there's nothing different about it. There are 3 elements which we have been doing for the last 5-6 years at least, and we'll continue to do that, which is invest in our brands, keep communicating to consumers the need for insurance and the strength of Paisabazaar on the credit side. We keep investing on the digital and technology infrastructure. What does that mean? We are tied up with 48, 49 insurers, and on the other hand, with 56 banks or NBFCs. And so we have to integrate with all these people, not just to provide a quotation, but also to service the customer beyond that, and to also create platforms for claims, etc. So all of that has to happen because we have to give convenience to the consumer. We have to also cover the innovation gaps and segment gaps. So, if you look at health insurance, not just health insurance, it's health insurance for older people, health insurance for people with diabetes, health insurance for younger people, health insurance for single people. So I think these are all different segments which need solutions in each category because you're serving a different consumer need. And this is something we have to continue to do. But as we go beyond this, we are expanding our offerings to SMEs and corporate clients, both for Policybazaar and Paisabazaar. We're building the complementary offline channels, which we can speak about at length. And that'll have a huge impact on scale for us over the coming few years. And where we can enhance our product and service capability, we would look at strategic investments. Kindly appreciate we're not interested in making strategic investments to just increase business. So we're not in the business of just buying business. But if it gives us some additional capabilities, then we would look at that. On international expansion, we have a business in Dubai. We're very happy with it. And we stay even-minded as we look at options in other countries, but we've not decided on anything. And we may never do anything, but we may also. We're addressing the large, underpenetrated and growing insurance and consumer lending markets. We have a leadership in both of them. It's a very important point. All our technology, data, and intelligence stack is organically built. We have not used any partners or any. And what that implies is we have a huge amount of flexibility in where we take it. Anybody who understands how technology and data stacks and intelligence stacks are built would appreciate the advantage of being organically built. And we have strong unit economics, which Alok walked you through with improving margins. So that's where we are. Thank you very much and look forward to hearing your questions.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll now be opening the floor for the Q&A session. While we have already received some questions and will be taking those first, a gentle reminder to all to kindly post your respective questions in the Q&A panel available to you. Also, a small request, if you could please identify your name and brokerage house while sending in these questions. And we'll try our best to ensure that all questions are answered. Coming to the first question, what is the mix of premium and revenue between protection life, non-protection life, health and motor?
Alok, you want to take that?
Yeah, so as Yashish mentioned, we have been focusing on protection. So in terms of overall contribution towards premium, protection will be near to 50%. We are not going down into the revenue breakup by segments, but we believe all parts of the insurance industry are actually poised for good growth. Asset-backed insurance is obviously linked to how assets will grow in India, but all other non-asset-backed, whether it's life, whether it's savings, whether it is health, they are poised for very, very good growth in coming future. So I don't see our mix changing drastically. Yes, there will be some years where a particular vertical will grow faster. Like with COVID in last 18 months, we would see that health has done a little better than others. But in terms of overall growth over the next 5 years, 10 years, we don't anticipate there will be a huge amount of change in terms of how these verticals will grow. But for us, protection is roughly 50%.
So just to add to that, as you look into the future, I think health will grow quite fast in both the medium and long term. Motor, yes, some shifts may happen, and we'll see how those go. Term insurance will pretty much grow in line with health and stay somewhat smaller than health, but keep growing fast. And investment is an open category. The margin, the volumes could change quite fast specifically with the offline side, they could grow quite fast. Sorry.
Thank you so much, sir. Coming to the next question. Why is the broking license important? Will it impact the digital push? Is the POSP model?
So see, let us go through what a broker license enables vis-a-vis a web aggregator license. Number one, in life insurance, a web aggregator cannot get commissions on renewals, whereas a broker can. Please appreciate, I'm not saying we will get commissions. All I'm saying, you can get. Legally, there is no barrier to receiving renewal commissions, while for a web aggregator, there is. Second is, a broker cannot have a physical, a broker can have a physical presence, whereas the web aggregator cannot have a physical presence. A web aggregator has a certain specified number of products that they can deal in. So corporate products, etc., are mostly out of the purview of what a web aggregator is allowed. A broker has no such restriction. As long as there's a product, you can deal in it. Right? And claim support. Claim support, a web aggregator cannot provide, while a broker is authorized to provide claim support, can also provide claims consultancy services, etc. And I think increasingly the web aggregator is a subset of the broker area. And so we felt, given our situation, that it was prudent for us to become a broker. And this was not done last 6 months or something. We had applied almost 2-3 years ago. And we were very happy to receive the broker license eventually this year in June. And from then onwards, we've started moving in those various directions. And yes, you correctly point out, POSP is one of those where you can have, which can be done by a broker, but which cannot be done by a web aggregator. If you ask me, my opinion on POSP is it's not a great business. Are we going to do it? Yes. But at no time am I pretending that it has the same marginability or same consumer value as the core consumer-led business. In POSP, essentially what happens is you call somebody else's business your business. That's the essential nature of POSP. But I think you all know that, or at least the person who may have asked this question will obviously know that. And yes, we will do POSP, but we certainly don't value it the same as the rest of our business. And whenever we do it, we'll declare how much of it is POSP all the time. We are growing quite fast in that area.
Thank you so much, sir. Coming to the next question, while we are currently investing for growth, so making EBITDA loss, what is a reasonable time frame over which one can expect us to turn profitable? And what is the steady state EBITDA percentage in the business?
Alok, you want to take that?
Yeah. So see, steady state EBITDA is a very tough call. And I'm not sure whether we are allowed to give some kind of forward-looking guidance on these matters. But if we look at our focus and how we look at our own business as management team, the core part of the business, we want to grow and we want to focus on efficiency. And if we are looking at efficient growth, profitability will automatically follow. But the aim is not to maximize or look at a number on a quarterly basis or a yearly basis. We want to look at, okay, what will happen in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time frame? Are we actually moving ahead with strategic intent towards solving the problem for consumers, solving a problem for our partners, doing something better for the industry. And some of the decisions, specifically if we look at some of the verticals, sometimes may look a little odd, because just to give an example, in health insurance, we just discussed the cohorts. So when we decide on some specific investment that's required to acquire more new business, it may not look as good on EBITDA level, but future year revenues which come from the same book will make it really, really good. So if we focus on today, we will not make the right decision. So for core business, we want to focus on efficient growth. If we do the right thing, profitability will follow. It's almost similar to saying valuation follows if you do the right. If you create the value, value follows. So it's the same thing. If you do the right thing, if you are creating value, everything else will fall in place. Having said that, we will obviously invest behind experiments. And I want to call it out separately because experiments will be early stage. They will go through their own investment curve, and we may take calls to go a little deeper in one or two of those as required over time. But we want to separate that out in our mind when we make a decision that this is the core business, which sort of got established in terms of business model, although a lot of stuff needs to be done. And we'll continue to push envelope on that. But there will be another portion of experiments which will be separate.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question reads, could you please break down the growth drivers over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of the end industry growth through rising penetration, the rise in digital share of distribution mix, and PB FinTech entering new product categories and geographies?
So if you look at the growth rate of the industry, people predict that to be about 15% or so. 15, 17, the report done by Frost Sullivan was talking about 17% or so. But whatever it is above 10%. It's a good industry to be in, number one, from a growth perspective. I think the second is the moment you get to protection as a category, health insurance and term insurance, these two, on a sustained basis, and I'm not talking about 1 year, 2 years, I'm saying on a 5-year, 10-year basis, these are clearly giving higher growth rates than the rest of the industry. So motor or savings is not, right now savings is growing, but on a sustained basis, they are not growing as fast as the protection category. And my honest and straightforward opinion on this is that the more the industry focuses on protection, the stronger the industry will become. Simply because the savings products, even banks, mutual funds, everybody can do those products in some way or the other. And thus, the competition set is a lot wider. Whereas for the term insurance or for the health insurance, the license has been provided to a specific set of people who can innovate on those products, and hence, that license is not available to everybody. So there is a clear advantage in focusing on those. And those are the areas of growth, clearly. Because many a times you will hear the word simple product and complex products. And even I use that a bit while talking about two-wheeler and motor insurance, etc. But actually, the difference is push products and potential pull products. And what is the pull product? A pull product is anything which, if a customer is fully explained everything about the product, he may still want to buy it, right? Whereas a push product would be something where there is a bit of grayness about the product. It may or may not be fully competitive with certain other categories of product, right? And I think where the consumer need is very clear, like in term insurance or health insurance. So I think these areas are going to grow, and we should focus on those. And of course, we would. Now, within those, why will digital grow? For a very simple reason. Your disclosure levels, and this is not me saying it, it's now increasingly industry knowledge. The disclosure levels in digital are far higher. That's the reality. It's not about Policybazaar. It's not about direct insurance. It's not about agencies. It's not about banks. It's not about anyone. It's just when a customer comes on an internet and starts disclosing on his own, he just discloses more. And insurance is obviously based on disclosure. So there is a huge advantage there on the quality of disclosure. I think reinsurers increasingly appreciate it. Insurance companies increasingly appreciate it. And I think that will keep playing out into the future. So there is going to be a market share shift. Let's talk about the past, right? Health insurance market share has grown in the last 5 years for digital. It's probably quadrupled. Where will this go? Will 5 years from now it be the same? Even if it is the same, the share of health insurance happening online will be much higher, because today what you are seeing is just the fresh business. See, only the, I don't know, right, 12, 15% of the fresh business of health insurance is happening online today. But on the renewal base, if you take the last 5 years average, that may be only 5%, that may be only 3%. Because 5 years ago, on the fresh book, the share was perhaps 2 to 3%, which has become about 12 to 15% now. And so what that means is when you look at it overall, you see a much smaller online part that is the reality. And over a period of time, especially, you will see a different picture very clearly. So my guess is a very large part of the business will be happening online over the next 5 years. And the renewal catch-up, adding to it, will start to disclose those numbers, at a perception level, at a higher level. And, yeah, I think somewhere I'm answering your question. See, I'm not allowed to go into, I do have a view on what I believe the exact percentages are going to be. I can't talk about this.
Yeah, but, just to conclude what Yashish was saying, industry itself will grow. And within the industry, we believe term and health should grow faster because of the nature of the product. A lot of the products are by nature little, again, full sort of product where customer is asking for those products. And the journey will start in online manner. We hope that a lot of that journey will start from Policybazaar. That's been happening till now. And as the tech solutioning and servicing improves, a lot of that will conclude online as well. Today, some people may research online but end up buying offline or end up buying through some other channels. But as the trust in the channels, as the online improves, as the whole flow improves over time, it will become much more convenient to buy directly from online. So there will be multiple effect of X over Y over Z over something. So we hope, this should play out quite nicely.
Thank you, sir. So what is the implied market cap at the higher end of the IPO price?
So, we gave a band of 940 to 980. At this range, depending on the dollar, we should be very near to 6 billion. I think the range would somewhere be 5.9 to 6.15 at current dollar rate. But yeah, very near to 6. And these are post money, by the way. Yeah. So this is all after all the ESOP dilutions and after all the money raised.
Thank you, sir. Coming to the next question. We love the leadership style that this venture has followed from its early days. What is the succession plan to groom leaders from within PB Fintech?
We have currently, we are not dying yet. Hopefully. But we have, CEOs for both our businesses, Policybazaar and Paisabazaar, CEOs, presidents, whatever you want to call them. They are leading those businesses day to day. We are no longer attending weekly calls. And that is happening at a very conscious level, because as we go public, we do have to have that clear, scalable management out there, despite the fact that we believe, we are here. And I think one of the strengths you will find at PB Fintech is the depth of the management. You have pretty good leaders at the CEO, president level and at the business unit head level. I would say right down to about 70 people. There's a lot of depth of management talent and solidity. When I say solidity, these people have not moved. They've been there, 5 years, 10 years, 13 years, some much longer than Policybazaar itself, because they've been working with me from before then, from 2-3 years before then, including Alok, by the way. Like, we've been working together before Policybazaar also. So these are people who are choosing to work together and continue to do so. There is almost no churn at a management level. And that is one of our biggest strengths. So I'm glad you asked this question. And from a succession planning perspective, yeah, we are attending monthly meetings. Of course, if we are required, we are there. But increasingly, we are not having any, how do I put it? Sometimes you need leadership to intervene when there is a stress situation in the business. Almost 6-8 months, I have not had to do that in Policybazaar at all. And in Paisabazaar, similarly, for almost 1 year plus, I've not had to do that. So yes, there is a lot of, we are focusing much more on the future, where, Doc Prime is coming in. And I'm not at liberty to speak about everything right now, but hopefully we will start speaking about things very soon. Once I'm at liberty, I love speaking about things. It's just, right now my mouth is sealed. But at some point we will speak about things that we have in our mind.
Yeah, see, we consciously took a decision of having business heads who were very independent, and that gave us freedom. That was right for the business as well. And the way we have looked at our management teams is get people in at little early in their career, sort of work with them, let them scale up, give them responsibilities which are a little above their current maturity levels and current delivery levels, and give them that space. And what we have seen because of that is a lot of these team members have grown in the same ethos of Policybazaar as we would have wanted. No, it's said that organizations take the personality of the founders, but eventually it has to be executed through the team. And because of the way the team was built out and they have stayed on, there was some data which is, I think, disclosed as part of our RHP also in terms of the attrition and all. You'll see in the key management, in the last 3 years, there have been only 2 attritions, that too in last year because of some reason. But otherwise, there was almost 0 attrition in the key management in last 3 years. I don't think too many organizations can flaunt such sort of matrices. And
any attrition is usually a very friendly attrition.
Yeah.
In fact, as you were going through the roadshows, a lot of people commented on that in their due diligence calls with ex-employees, what they found is they spoke very highly of the team at Policybazaar and the business at Policybazaar. And usually that happens rarely. So that's one of the areas we're very, very proud of. I'll just make one very small statement, right? Suppose we're looking for people to lead Policybazaar right now, just the Policybazaar, the key brand. I could do it. Sarbvir can do it. Alok can do it. I have at least 2 more people in Policybazaar who can do it, and Naveen can do it. So I have 6 potential CEOs for the business, which is 80% of our business. Let's talk about something else, a role that usually nobody has anybody for. Let's talk about the CFO role. Suppose Alok can do it, Sarbvir can do it. We've got 2 people who can become CFOs. My own role within the company, Alok can take my role, Naveen can take my role, Sarbvir can take my role. These are people who are ready. They all 3 can take my role. So we have choices and choices. And please, we want to build this company. I'm here to build this company. This is not time to I can't retire yet.
Thank you so much, sir. Coming to the next question, what do you think about the growth of direct-to-consumer insurance like ACO? And do you think they could be a threat to your business?
Yeah, I will not comment on any one individual player, etc. I think direct to consumer has been there, not today, since a long time. A lot of companies have been direct to consumer. So I think it can be a slightly misused term. You have, I remember when we started Policy Bazaar, ICICI Lombard was already selling direct. Sorry, I'm again commenting on a specific player. But these businesses have been there forever. And we have been growing while all these businesses have existed. And we'll see the future. I don't want to comment too much on the future.
But large market, opportunities exist for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
There are so many different customer segments. There are so many product segments. We are talking about core products, then there are attachment products, then there are, bundle products, lots and lots of stuff, which is...
So let me ask you a reverse question. Let's not take any brand. Will one brand be able to dominate the entire insurance category? Forget about Policy Bazaar. Let's take Policy Bazaar out of the equation. Any brand. And you see the players there. For a moment, just step back and think about all these players and think about the capabilities they have, the capitals they have, the willingness to go direct they have, large brands, bank-backed brands, non-bank-backed brands, brands with access to, significant amount of capital. Are we of the conclusion that a single brand will dominate everybody else? I don't think that's the future. So I think there's space for a lot of people. And clearly, there are different products. There is term insurance, there is health insurance, and in none of our core areas, you know what I'm saying, right? Our core areas, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, could you please elaborate on the various compensation plans for employees? For instance, we have equity settled compensation plans. So how do you expect the employee cost to shape up?
Yeah, so basically, we have got three things in place. One is for operations, where the team gets a fixed salary, plus on top of that, based on their performance, they get a monthly incentive. It's directly linked to what they have been able to achieve in a particular month or a particular period, and we keep on running schemes for operations team. Then for all the non-operations people, we have, especially for the mid and senior level people, we have a fixed salary and we have a variable salary, which is again quite standard in the industry. And from a stock compensation perspective, I think almost like 300 people in the company would have got stock. And as part of the IPO process, again, we were allowed by the board to give out some more stock to the employees, actually quite a lot of stock to the employees. So that's done already. The impact on the financials, see, typically the way it's accounted for, a lot of cost is taken in the first year. And then it tapers down to the fifth year, because we have right now the scheme we have is 5-year scheme. And the accounting is tapering, although the real stock vesting happens quite evenly. But to be honest, from management perspective, when we look at our own decision making, we are not as bothered about the stock charges which may come into the P&L. Because, those are lumpy things. They may happen in 1 year, they may not happen in next year. So that should not impact the way we are deciding. But yeah, it's a very, very widespread stock compensation plan we have.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as you envisage a path to profitability, what are the key factors that you will be working on? Also, could you please throw some light on the top 3 objectives that you need to work on and achieve by FY25, on which you would like to evaluate your performance?
Yeah. See, the key metrics, as far as I'm concerned, are what percentage of our business comes from our direct traffic. That's an indicator of how strong the brand is. And that is something I always watch out for and I measure on a constant basis. Because that's really the only customer you have. Rest everybody you're either paying a Google or you're paying a Facebook or somebody, right? So eventually, the customer you really have is the one who's walking into your shop on their own. And the second part we are very focused on is the convenience factor. When a customer is buying, how unassisted is that transaction? How unassisted is the post-transaction experience? How much deep integration do we have to enable endorsements, cancellations, refunds, make it a single-click experience, customer service, renewals? A lot of it we have done, a lot of it we have to do. And that's a big, heavy lift. I think for 2-3 years, that's going to be an important area. And the third area is what role we can play in product innovation, etc., with the insurance partners. The fourth area, which is actually linked to the second one, is how we can enable the platform development in the industry. A bit like a UPI moment, right? UPI freed up payments to really grow fast. Today, if UPI wasn't there, you may not have a Google Pay, a Phone Pay, etc., right? So to some extent, we are awaiting a UPI moment in health. And a similar moment, for example, and I'll give a very simple example, right? I once remember, sorry, I've been told to give short answers, but sometimes this is the only way it makes sense. My dad has a transport business, and I remember once they had an accident with a car. Somebody's Audi got hit by the truck, and the person said he wanted 4 lakh rupees there and then. My father said, I don't carry around 4 lakh rupees. And there was a physical fight and all that stuff. Police got involved and all that. And, the point is, why doesn't this happen in the UK? I asked the guy that you have insurance. So why are you fighting with an 85-year-old man? They were larger in numbers, so they hit us. I said, why are you guys fighting? You have insurance. The guy said, oh, insurance se paise aap le lena, aap hame paise abhi de do. And I realized his problem. His problem was he wasn't confident the insurance claim will come. Or he thought there would be a pain in it, right? And that's the reason in the UK people don't fight. Because the insurance claim experience is a standard experience. You just get it. Nobody ever believes that claim nahi milega. Ya claim mein difficulty hogi. So it's a painless experience. Now, how do you make it painless? When a company, there's a conflict of interest, right? Between paying a claim and whatever. And so somewhere the government will have to intervene and create an auto-adjudication mechanism or an auto-adjudication framework. In a way, the National Digital Health Mission with the e-claims platform may be doing it in health. Something similar with Vahan, etc., will need to happen in motor. Because, and if you look at the direction of the nation, it's headed that way. Now, we have a huge stake in enabling that, because that standardization of claims experience is a very critical step. When Alok was explaining growth of these markets, a large part of the growth of these markets is based on the standardization of claims experience and the auto-adjudication nature of claims experience. And my belief is at some point in the future that's going to happen. Largely government-led or government-sponsored, so to say. And that's the UPI moment of insurance, in my view. And yes, we have a huge stake in making sure it moves in that direction.
Thank you so much, sir. So coming to the next question, when most of the larger insurance companies have their own portals and digital strategies, why would they be attracted to Policy Bazaar? Could you throw some light on that?
See, we have 126 million people coming looking for insurance. If you have a digital platform, you ask anybody who has a digital platform, what do they want? They want customers. The platform anybody can make, yeah. How do you get customers on that platform. It's very expensive.
Direct will
also grow. Direct will grow. How do you get direct? Why do I advertise on Google? It's an expense for me. Why do I advertise on Google? Because somewhere that also helps my direct grow. Why do I build a brand? Where you are getting 126 million customers looking for insurance, it obviously benefits to have your best foot forward there and to say, this is my, that's the whole marketplace strategy.
And this is a complementary channel. When an insurance company tries to build direct, they don't say we won't work with a bank, we won't work with NC, we won't work with XYZ. And plus direct is built by them by spending on Google, by spending on Facebook of the world. So,
Apple's available on Amazon. Apple is also available on apple.com. If Amazon is there, it doesn't mean Apple is not working. And to an extent, Amazon needs Apple to be there so that people are attracted to the product. These are all symbiotic relationships. We have the same. Great products are required, great experiences are required for us to provide to our customers, and those are provided by insurance companies. Insurance companies direct will grow when they also leverage the Policybazaar platform and sell here. It's, sadly, maybe some people believe it's an either or. The insurance industry is not that. It's an and. You do this also, you do that also, and overall both grow faster.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, as mentioned, digital insurance still remains to be a better business than the POSP model. So what are the challenges and opportunities you are seeing in the POSP model? And what is the main reason behind Policybazaar entering it?
No, see, POSP, a certain amount of volume goes through POSP every year. And we have as good a platform as any other to provide for that POSP. And I think it's a good channel to have to expand into tier 2, tier 3. So there is no reason why we shouldn't take that volume when it is available. But the point is, at a marginal level, if somebody tells you, and anybody in the market will tell you that, if somebody tells you they're doing POSP at 30% margin, they are plain lying, because that is a business that's operating at maximum 2% margin. I mean, why will somebody give you their business for less commission or less payout when something more is available? It is what it is. So, and for us, the platform is already built. So it's in a way a zero cost channel. And why would we not do it? It's a very straightforward thing.
Yeah. So let's understand what POSP is in a nutshell. One, customer doesn't know your brand, but they go through your platform, and you have a tech stack which is enabling that transaction. Now we have the tech stack, and in our case, because customer knows the brand, that helps the POSP channel itself. But as Yashish said, that is not to be confused with a customer coming to your platform, looking for a product and transacting on your platform. These are two very, very different business models per se, and your tech stack helps you to get that scale, sometimes which can be very, very helpful when you are trying to do a specific thing in an industry. So there are strategic objectives for doing POSP, but these are very, very different models. Very, very different models.
Thank you, sir. So can entry into corporate and SME segments help strengthen the network effects of our core business, which we are currently in? And can these segments be meaningful from a profit perspective in the long run?
See, eventually, insurance, as I mentioned, is not an either or game. It's an and game. If you do two things and they are done at incremental margin. So let me try to explain what I mean by that. Suppose we do 2 billion rupees of premium and we make, let's say, $100 billion of profit. I'm just making up these numbers, right? And suppose we have an opportunity to do $6 billion of premium and still make $100 billion of profit. which one would we choose? On one side, what the market will say is, oh, EBITDA margin is only 100 by 6 billion. So why do this? It's 1/3 the EBITDA margin. To me, it's a no-brainer. We would obviously do the 6 billion at 100 crores, at 100 million, rather than 2 billion at 100 million. And scale in this market is important. See, you have if you think about it, what is our problem so far? We're saying we have a core business, which is very strong, which is very powerful. But what are our detractors saying? Our detractors are saying, oh, online is just 1% of the market or 2% of the market. First of all, does not feel good, is not the truth. So why would we not expand into those areas also? The second part, as you look at corporate, the margin may not be there on some lines. So you may not have a good margin on the corporate health part, but you may have good margin in corporate assets. You may have good margin in fire and marine. And then, if you're able to create engagement, although nobody has so far, but if you're able to create engagement at the employee level, then you have an inroad into a profitable access channel to corporate employees. So, I think you all know, you are all investors. I have never invested in a stock in my life. Never, ever. I'm just a fixed deposit person and one Policy Bazaar. But you all know these models here. You have to do a lot of complex thought process to win in any market. And I think getting scale at an incremental margin, even though that may not be margin accretive, at a gross margin, which is positive, is a beautiful thing. And to me, that is what POSP is, that is what corporate is for now. And there are add-on benefits. Please appreciate, today, this POSP person is selling insurance. He can also do credit cards. Please appreciate, when I sell a two-wheeler insurance, I make 50 rupees. To the same customer, if you give a credit card also, you make 2,000 rupees. There is a lot of opportunities out there. You have to try to make the opportunities work.
And when you talk about corporates, a lot of times we think that corporates means very large organizations with tens of thousands of employees. The reality is there is a very large SME segment as well. A lot of these SME owners come to Policybazaar for their personal insurance needs. And then they ask us that, I have already bought my car insurance or health insurance through you. Can you help me something for my company, my shop, my employees, whatever? And it's a natural extension from that perspective of the relationship. And as Yashi said, it's not either or, it's and. So why should we leave that opportunity? And we already have that customer coming to us. So that's the beauty of it.
I'll give you a very simple example. I asked our own administration team to buy as much online as possible. Why do I do that? Because if I do not do that, the administration team might build some friendship and start some cashback arrangement. And I don't want that kind of festering in my company. And a lot of my friends who are SME owners have a similar thought process. They have admin, HR teams. And they would rather you bought online. And it's a direct conversation. I don't know. I'm not saying one thing or the other. I'm just telling you the fact that, that is how some people are thinking. And we have a lot of people, coming and just buying SMEs for their insurance needs, pure online.
Thank you so much, sir. Coming to the next question, there could be valuation driven by PE round valuation. Is that valuation a benchmark for public listing?
See, on valuation, we obviously had huge number of investor meetings over the last 2-3 months. We also went with the advice we got from the banks. They obviously are experts in understanding these things much better than us. We are doing it for the first time. I think there used to be some diversion between public and private, which is slowly disappearing. And we also had actually a small secondary transaction a few months back, which was not very far from this valuation. So yeah, there was multiple inputs we received when we decided that this is the sort of valuation we want to go ahead with.
Thank you, sir. We'll be taking the last couple of questions for this session. The next question reads, what should be the closest peers listed globally in your business?
Very good question. That's the magic. There honestly are not any. I'm giving a very honest answer. Nothing like Policybazaar has been built on a global scale, or any country. And I know the markets quite well. So yeah, you can choose something as a benchmark should you wish to. But quite honestly, you're just satisfying yourself through that. There actually isn't a genuine peer. So it's a model built for India. Hopefully, at some point it might be built for the world from India. But right now it is built in India, built for India. And genuinely, there's nothing like this in China. There's nothing like this in the US. There's nothing like this in all of Europe. Nothing pretty much anywhere.
Thank you so much, sir. So the next question is, could you outline the revenue model for both Policybazaar and Paisabazaar?
It's a straightforward commission model. It's like a broker who is allowed to take commission. We get a commission. There's nothing complicated about it.
So Policybazaar is a broker and Paisabazaar usually acts as a DSA, which is a commission income or a fixed fee income depending on the product, whether it's credit card or personal loan or some advisory. But yeah, it's broker / DSA.
The basic principles are whatever product is available to the customer comes at exactly the same price. And for a manufacturer, the benchmark is, okay, what would it cost you to either distribute the product through other sources, or what would it cost you to go and market on, let's say, a Google or a Facebook, and then put a call center to kind of complete the transactions? What would it cost you on, relative to that? And as long as you're competitive and it's within the regulatory boundaries, it's okay.
Coming to the last question for this evening session, why raise fresh funds if only 60 to 65% of the $400 million pre-IPO fund infusion is utilized?
No, it is not utilized. Only 30 to 35% is utilized. The remaining 65% is sitting in the bank. So I want to clarify. So your question is very valid, but we have not utilized 65% of what we have raised. We have only utilized 35% of what we have raised. I'll hand over to Alok to answer the more difficult question.
See, to be completely honest, when we started the process, we thought there'll be larger OFS. We have a very clear idea about our expenses on the core business. As I said earlier, experiments will evolve over time. But we had, in a way, very good situation that none of the investors wanted to sell. And at the very last moment, SoftBank agreed to sell a small portion of their holding. But we are doing a large primary, and there is a specific use case we want to use it for in terms of physical, in terms of international, in terms of awareness. It's not that we could not have done that from accruals plus what we have in the bank. But, the way rules are, we have to do a primary. And these are the expenses which we have very high certainty about over the next 3 years, 4 years that we'll have to spend money on. But in terms of not only money there, the whole IPO process, somewhere if you look at our situation, it's like 14 years. The business has got to a particular scale. The base business model had sort of stabilized. The business has shown maturity. So I think it's the right time when we include a lot more shareholders, retail shareholders onto the story. It also indicates the right things to the market. A lot of our consumers hopefully will become the shareholders because they have experienced the service that we have been providing. And we are India-based, we are listing in India, so there has to be overlap. It also provides a liquidity option to not only our investor, but even our employees. So yeah, from that perspective, we had to do it at some point, and this is as good a time as any other time.
Thank you so much, sir. With that, we close the Q&A session. I would now like to invite Mr. Arvind Vashish from Citigroup Global Markets India Private Limited to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the senior management of PB Fintech and the book runners, thank you very much for taking the time out to attend this broker conference. It's indeed a very proud moment for PB Fintech, its founders, Ashish and Alok, and all its employees. And we'd like to congratulate them on reaching this very important milestone. We are very proud to be associated with this IPO. PB Fintech has built India's largest online platform for insurance and lending products. It provides convenient access to insurance, credit, and other financial products, creating awareness amongst Indian households about the financial impact of death, disease, and damage. Policybazaar was India's largest digital insurance marketplace, and Paisabazaar was India's largest digital consumer credit marketplace on the basis of independent reports from agencies like Frost & Sullivan. A company has built all of this through strong consumer-friendly brands with proprietary technology, stack, data and intelligence, and collaborative insurance and lending partners. We are very confident this IPO will be highly successful given PB Fintech's unique positioning. We look forward to all your support in the IPO. Company already has a very strong pre-IPO cap table, and we think this IPO will strengthen and make it more meaningful from a cap table. So with that, thank you very much. For any questions, please do feel free to reach out to the book running lead managers, and we'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for joining the virtual analyst and brokers meet of PB Fintech Limited for their forthcoming IPO. We try to answer as many questions as possible. While I understand that there are still multiple questions that we had, I would request anyone and everyone to please feel free to email us and reach out to us at pbfintechIPO@policybazar.com, and we'll try our best to revert to all your queries within 48 hours. We look forward to your support in making this IPO a grand success. Thank you all once again for taking out the time and joining us today. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.